Peace, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to Israel Doctrines Google Hangout. I'm your host, Carl Lambert, and you have now entered into our Hangout. And what we have here today is the exclusive people. This brother was just on Sinetta TV on 125th Street. So his name is Jeff Rosenberg. As he said, no relation to Harry Rosenberg.
Yes,
but
very distant.
He was on 125th Street, so I named this on his bill with Sinetta and Red Pill on 125th Street. Peace. How you doing today, bro?
Shalom. How are you? How are you, Carl? Or Israel Doctor?
Good. It doesn't matter.
No,
I'm both.
Way. Oh, I'm well, thank you. I just picked up my computer. I had to get it fixed. So that's where I'm at. I'm in a computer store.
Okay, let's talk about your bill, man. Let's talk about your bill.
Yeah. Right. So right now, I'm a filmmaker. I just graduated from Emerson College, and in Boston. And right now, I want to help build community relations, especially between different groups. Sorry. One. Oh, yeah, I'm here to help you. Oh no, I'm good. You're good? I'm good. Okay. Yeah. If you want me to move, do you want?
No. I guess you put your name in the queue there.
Oh, I'm good. No, thank you so much. Like I said, I'm in a store. I'm sorry. Yeah. So right now I'm trying to help build a program to help students and other people break down identity and the history of identities, and eventually build a foundation that everybody, all different types of people, can use to build together and converse and be honest and acknowledge historical truths as well as emotional perspectives. So that's my deal. I'm not trying to antagonize people within the community or any communities. I'm trying to help illuminate issues that I can see from my perspective as a Jewish person living in America, and from my background of looking at different cultural texts, and then also, and then my brother, who's been researching Arab-Israeli conflict, international conflict resolution, history. He's been studying these things since he was a kid, and I've been studying all different types of cultural aspects since I was a kid. So I'm really trying to engage with different communities as well as intersecting communities and building and creating unity through diversity.
Okay. So did you bring this up with Sinetta or what?
Oh yes. So what they wanted me to do, what they also wanted me to do is kind of talk with diasporic Jewish community and say like, oh well, what are they doing right now, and what are you going to tell them? And so for me, I do often see diasporic Jews who, whether they're ethnic Jews from like who migrated and settled in Europe, or were enslaved and brought to Europe. I've seen those people, like Leonard Bernstein, the conductor. He held a fundraiser to help Black Panthers get out of jail for bail money. There was Jack Greenberg, who worked with the Brown versus Board of Education lawyers, the NAACP. He was an NAACP lawyer, and he helped coordinate the doll experiments, like Dr. Kenneth Clark and his wife. Those experiments featuring the dolls, he helped coordinate Jewish agencies' money to fund that research and then also deliver that research. And he also helped establish the Mexican American Legal and Defense Education Fund, like that thing. So it was, for me, Jews try to uphold our three principles: tzedakah, which is justice, righteousness, charity, and then there's tikkun olam, which is repairing the world, and then the third is Torah, which to me represents looking at your past and then applying, or anyone's past, the ancestors' past, and applying those principles, the learning, to today, to the present, and that's like judicial review. I even have a book right here called Social Justice in Ancient Israel. It's like a lecture about about ancient Israel and how certain kings, not just kings, but like certain leaders tried to, when they were writing the Torah, they tried to make a balance. And, you know, if something was wrong, they tried to make sure that it was right. Do you know what I mean? Especially somebody who's oppressed. So trying to uplift the oppressed. That's the perspective that I come from.
So it seemed if the bill was pretty cool, did they treat you pretty nice?
Oh yeah, of course, everything's well. You know, there's certain issues that we didn't get to speak about, which was unfortunate. But you know, everything's, you know, always in little bits.
Okay, so now they was asking you about the I guess about the trying times that we dealing with right now. The
Police brutality.
Yeah, police brutality and the killing of blacks and stuff. And as
Yes.
you just mentioned some names, he was saying, well, I don't see Jewish people coming out now to support and do things to that nature. What was your response to that? And what is your response to it now? You know,
My response is I've always seen Jews, I've always seen diasporic Jews coming to the front lines of protests or organizations or agencies to help establish racial justice or de-establishing racial injustice. Whether it's, you know, the freedom walk, the walk for last year, there was a summer walk. There was a walk with the NAACP where a rabbi, certain rabbis, they held the Torah and they brought it with them to. They went from Selma to Washington D.C. There's other aspects of trying to beat the box, like not to beat, kill, you know, X out the box, which for incarceration, where somebody, you know, some people are forced to put under their employment applications that whether they've been incarcerated or not, especially, which is problematic, especially in cases where they've been wrongly incarcerated or accused, you know, or for little petty crimes that shouldn't affect them for the rest of it. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of Jews on the front lines, and the only thing is that they might not necessarily represent themselves as Jews, and that's what I'm trying to show is that, and also reestablish, is that there's problems with identity within the diasporic Jewish community, that they're not necessarily aware of, that is important to other / intersecting communities.
so this is what you was trying to explain to him when you said you was painted white,
Yes.
meaning that you a Jew, and at the end of the day, people will take you as a plain white guy, Caucasian, European,
Exactly.
and stuff. But
Exactly,
you're
which I'm not.
So what you're saying now is these people may be on the front line, look like you, but they're not saying they're Jews. They just look
Exactly.
the role.
Yeah,
white
they might even say that they're white, which is a problem because then they're taking on the burden that white people actually should be taking, that actual European people should, you know, in terms of the system, the European system has not taken responsibility toward uplifting oppressed communities. They have not. And the same thing with in the Middle East, there's also Arab countries, which nations that still live off of the land, money, and power established to them by stealing from oppressed communities, especially Jews, Black people, well, intersecting between Jews and Black people, but like in general, Druze, Samaritans, and it's the same thing in Europe, where you have kings and queens. In Europe, you have kings and queens in Arab countries, and they're all living off the land that they stole, and the money that they stole to create those establishments.
So is this the problem, kind of as Red Pill was trying to go into, when you have people that take on Caucasian names or European names, yet they're Jewish people? Do you feel that they did this to hide themselves from their Jewish family or tribe?
Sometimes for their own survival. Sometimes for their own survival. In order for you to get money, or sometimes in order for you to feed your family, you have to hide certain things about yourself. it's bad and it's backwards, and you shouldn't be doing that. But at the end of the day, you're the one that's surviving for yourself. And now you might see that, especially when he brought up Red Pill, Brother Red Pill, which it was wonderful to build with him. It's wonderful to build with you, Carl. He brought up Al Jolson. Now, Al Jolson, yeah, he changed his name. Actually, I think it was Königsberg. I'll look it up right now. Al Jolson was originally named, let's see. His original name was Asa Jolson. So now what we're talking about here is that he put on blackface. Now, subconsciously, he might be, because the oppressors, the actual Europeans that enslaved his people and brought them to Europe, or brought him to Lithuania. Some of my ancestors were migrated or were enslaved and brought to Lithuania as well. Now, some of his people that were brought to Lithuania, they were either raped or had to intermarry, and that's how their skin got light. That's how their facial features may have changed a little bit. But you can generally see most Jews, they still have roundish features. There's still certain things about Jews that are different than Europeans, which Europeans eventually enacted in the Holocaust. But that's for another story. But for now, Al Jolson, he may have been subconsciously trying to show that he was an Afro-Asiatic person who his ancestors had darker skin, but no longer could people recognize that. And so for putting on the skin tone, it showed people his oppression. In the movie, it's a cantor, it's a cantor's son, and the rabbi's son. And the rabbi wanted him to be a rabbi or a singer in the synagogue, and he wants to be a jazz singer because that speaks to him. And even if at some point people should compare klezmer music to jazz music, because klezmer music it might even intersect. But anyway, that's another point. So we're going back to this identity issue where he's problematically putting on blackface as well as singing these racist tunes. Although from his perspective, it's an endearment aspect. The idea of mammy is to say that he loves his mother, and that was his message from what the song was invoking. Now, that doesn't mean that it was good for him to do that. It doesn't mean that it was good to promote that kind of, because white people don't see the difference between a light-skinned Jew saying something, and a white person saying something. So they often exploit that. They look at the jazz singer and saying, "Oh, look, this is okay to do," but they don't understand what the real meaning is. And for other intersecting peoples, black people, they might not understand where Al Jolson is coming from as a Jew.
So
Al Jolson was also closely knit with the jazz community too. So it's with black musicians. So it's very confusing, but it makes sense in some aspects.
Right, so you got to break it down a little bit to the people that don't know. You got to get a backstory a little bit.
Exactly. Right? All these tangled up ties.
If nothing else, do this. Give the people the references where they can go and find, the information in which you're talking about, because a lot of people over here don't really know. We know that jazz music was pretty much created by black people. Mm-hmm. We know that you saying the gentleman put on a black face to show in equality between him and the blacks, that he was being oppressed, that he felt that way and stuff. Yeah. So kind of give us some references for those that may not know. I'm not gonna pull them up right quick.
Unfortunately, I don't have everything on me right now, but I can say that if you look through even the Wikipedia page, you can see certain aspects. Let's see. So here's performing in blackface in the section of Wikipedia under Al Jolson. It says, as metaphor of mutual suffering. Jazz historians have described Jolson's blackface and singing style as metaphors for Jewish and black suffering throughout history. This is described by Michael Alexander, historian, as an expression of liturgical music of Jews with the imagined music of African Americans, noting that prayer and jazz became metaphors for Jews and blacks. And then somebody said, my God, he had an epiphany, my God, when seeing Robinson Crusoe, this, my God, this isn't a jazz singer, this is a cantor. The image of the black-faced cantor remained in Ralphuson's. So this is Samson Ralphuson, who's a playwright. After seeing Jolson perform in Robinson Crusoe, said that, my God, this isn't a jazz singer, this is a cantor, and then created the story, The Jazz Singer. That was Samson Ralphuson, like Raphaelson. I think he's probably also Jewish. Let me double check. Yep, as far as they know. So I don't know. Does that make any sense? Does that give any background? You might be able to find more. So people should, for me, for research, definitely Google things, put things in quotes. If you're trying to find somebody's name, put it in quotes, and then also put certain search terms and commas afterward. You know, if some people don't know necessarily how to research things, and also try to go to your library, look on databases, go to schools and try to see if you know, community colleges or any school, any public college that's able to provide a database for resource materials online, like EBSCO, EBSCO, or what's it called, ABC Clio, JSTOR, JSTOR. Like, look through those and try to see where these cultural roots are.
Well, let's talk about it some, because I believe none of them is ignorant of it. And the Harry Rosenberg thing and what Harry was saying, he was trying to educate the people on it a little bit. We know he made the video saying that the African Americans are also Jews. Can you speak on that and how you see that and how it relates to the conversation you had on the 125th that I believe they was totally ignorant of or just totally ignored?
Well, my friend and brother, brother, Aki, Remy Ilona, he's a Igbo scholar. You interviewed him earlier this year. He and his people are under the belief, as well as under the historical heritage passed down to them, that they are Israelites. They are an ethnic group in Nigeria, located in southeast Nigeria, and they've been oppressed. They've been genocided by certain ethnic groups within that, especially those that run the Nigerian government. Now, according to him and a lot of his people, they believe they are Israelites, and so many of them were sold into slavery, and then they migrated throughout. So not migrated, but they were enslaved and brought to the Americas and brought to Europe. So you have, and according to certain statistics, there are 30% to 40% of Black Americans who have Igbo descent. So in that sense, there are many Black Americans who have some type of Israelite connection through their ancestors. Now, whether or not they've reclaimed it or they reestablished their connection to it varies between the groups. So even I've heard Brother Polite is Igbo. So to me, I hear that and say, oh, well, he's Israelite. And also the way he works reminds me of many Israelites in the past, leaders who rise up and try to lead revolutions. To me, that's very Jewish. And it doesn't, not to speak to cover up however he identifies, but much love to him. It's very good to try to uplift the people and put down the put down the oppressors, put down oppression. So we're
I believe Polite may be putting on Kemet face in the sense of saying that, he knows he both from his DNA test and stuff.
Right.
And I caught him talking about sovereignty. And talking about sovereignty, he said that he has a spiritual father. He called himself the Son of the Most High. And his spiritual father has a throne, a kingdom, and dominion, and things of this nature. So I believe he might be wearing Kemet face, and he might be trying to hide like those Jewish people that he's talking about.
I see you. I mean, it might be the case, but I guess hopefully eventually all of these things will eventually be able to be spoken about and say, well, even if you want to represent Kemet, you can also represent Israelite because that's who you are in terms of the Igbo descent. Now, there's always mixtures. There's always people diverting from how they were, what their actual ethnicity is. I see what you're saying. You're referring to like a self-hatred aspect, right? That's what you're trying to say, that it's possible self-hatred. Now, you have to, sometimes people need to be made aware of certain things about them. So like you have Karl Marx. Karl Marx was violently self-hated. Even though he was a great leader, even though what he did was very Jewish, so to speak, you know, trying to put down oppression and raise the people up. At the same time, he hated Jews and he hated himself. He hated for being who he was. And at the end of the day, he's a Jew, but at the end of the day, he worked against Jews. You see?
Okay.
He did.
So now let's talk about did you explain to them how did you know Sarnetta name? Because he asked, he said, "Oh, you know my name. I didn't tell you my name was Sarnetta. How you know?" Did you speak about that? Because I've been around for a while. I know me and you done talked about Sarnetta TV and the debates and different things. So I know how you know about Sarnetta. Please tell the people a little bit how you know about Sarnetta.
I've been trying to engage within community, various communities, especially the conscious community. You know, especially as a Jew, especially as trying to unite peoples, especially peoples of either the same ethnicity or the same racial group or the same tribe, or those who are different tribes, or those who have diasporic tribes. So for me, my tribe intersects with many people who are within the conscious community, i.e. Brother Polite, i.e. Hebrew Israelites, i.e. everything all connects. And I really want to help build the foundation to have all these groups work together and build the community. And, really, my interest is not trying to tell people to do what to do. My interest is to help coordinate the base message for what people want. And in some cases, Black Lives Matter wants to do that, right? Black Lives Matter attempts to do something like that. So for me, I want to help facilitate this, especially with my community, which has a 6,000-year perspective on being oppressed and also trying to rise up within social mobility. And it's even if we're put in the position of power, we're still oppressed because we're still part of the system, because we're still designed to be in that part of the system. So that's what they were trying to talk about. That's why Brother Rapil and Sinetta were trying to talk about, saying like, well, what about, these people who are perpetuating white America, suburban America? And for me, if they're Jews trying to perpetuate that importance, well, for me, it's like, well, maybe number one, they're trying to, some of these people are trying to make money. They're trying to succeed because they've been through so much that they're really just trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator, which for a long time has been the so-called white population of America, middle America, middle class, European descent, mixture, white people in America. So it's problematic if Jews try to, but at the same time, then you get Norman Lear, then you get what's his name, David Walper, who created Roots, helped create Roots. Now at the same time, Roots might be problematic, but at least it's promoting us learning about somebody's history, learning that people have a longer background, a deeper roots than what you see day to day, or what the stereotypes you hear. These people were so the Mandinka warrior people from West Africa, or mid Africa. Like if you're gonna if you're going to just look at people based on the stereotypes that the media tries to, which is not Jewish. Again, it's not the lowest common denominator is what the elite wants to employ Jews to appeal to. You see?
Right.
Yeah.
The question is,
Yeah.
how do you know Starnetta and stuff? Because I know, like I said,
sorry.
It's all good. I mean, this information, people can take that in.
So I met with Remy Ilona, who's a scholar, Igbo scholar. I've met. I haven't met him in person, and I haven't met Harry Rosenberg in person. My brother met Remy in person. But anyway, I've been really trying to connect to try to establish more unity and bonds between diasporic Jewish community and the rest of the intersecting Black American community. And so, looking through these different, I heard about Harry Rosenberg in his debate and his lecture on Jewish diaspora, and he was talking about how he eventually addressed Khazar, but I disagree that the Khazarian theory is legitimate.
Yeah,
I don't think
we don't have to get in that all day.
Yeah, of course. But anyway, the real point is that I eventually came, I saw Sarnetta is the media is one of the main media heads.
Outlet.
And then I met you, and I met, I really trying to get involved. So I eventually, I was just literally at that day, 2 days ago, I was walking down the street and I was looking for Hebrew Israelites to talk with, to build with, and I saw Sarnetta, and he called me over and he was like, "Hey, talk to me about police brutality." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, no, I do not, I do not support police brutality. This." And then eventually he said, "Oh, well, you as a white man." I said, "Well, I'm not white." He's like, "What?" And I was like, "Well, no, I'm Jewish." And then that's what happened.
Oh, so you was actually walking down 125th.
Yeah.
Sarnetta saw you, and he just picked you out of the crowd, like,
Exactly.
"Hey, you white boy, come here and talk to me about police brutality."
Yes.
No intentions of talking to him that day?
I was hoping I'd get to meet him at some point, but I didn't know I was going to meet him 2 days ago.
Oh, okay. So now,
Tuesday.
what was the conversation you had with Red Pill about Sarah Sudensetti and Marcus? You was out there that night that
yes,
those two had that interaction. Tell us about it.
And I've talked with Marcus. Marcus is a wonderful being, and I've talked with him. I talked to him last night. I talked with him. I talked to him again when I visited New York again, and I talked with him later that night, to try to talk about really building this community and really building these relations between communities and dispelling certain miscommunications that have existed. So, for example, when you go to Williamsburg, you have a group of ultra-Orthodox Jews who are known as Satmars, and they live under this traumatized psyche, where they live as if they were in the shtetls or the ghettos of Eastern Europe and Russia and all of that area. Now, they brought that here, and a lot of people criticize them because they're either they perceive them to be rude, racist. They live off of welfare and Section 8 housing, and people think that's their so-called white privilege. Now, it might be their white passing privilege, but for me, like, they're Jews, so it's like, at the same time, they are not the majority representation of Jews around the world, nor in America. Most Jews in America, they're not. But it will seem like it because they're so present within New York City and present within certain communities that, or even in Jerusalem, that it seems that they're the ones that represent all holiness Jew. Now, the reason why I've asked people why they act in a way that seems to be foreboding or silent, is because they're under the impression that they're in diaspora from Israel, Eretz Israel, the land, the region of Canaan, Israel, that above Egypt. They're under the impression that if they study the literal Torah, the Hebrew words constantly, and nothing else, God will look favorably on them, and God will bring them back to Israel. And if they divert that from that in any way, whether it's talking with people from outside the community, or even people literally outside the community, like I'm not a part of their community. As a Jew, I'm not a part of their community. They don't understand that I'm Jewish because I don't wear peyot, and I don't wear kippah, and I don't always dress in a suit. There's a huge misconception that these are the people that represent all Jews, because Judaism has evolved, diaspora has evolved, as we've seen today with all the different factions. You have Hebrew Israelites, Moorish temple sites, 5%ers, Nation of Islam. All these different groups, evolve their thought and how they deal with their oppression. So for these Jews, they're stuck, and they don't necessarily know how to get out of it. They're the teachers, from what I've heard, they don't teach their children science, history, even English in some cases, or even medicine. So like everything to them is literal prayer / studying Torah in certain limited ways. To me, Torah is all around us. To me, Tikkun Olam and Tzedakah is all around us. So I don't know if people understand that. And that's what I also want to illuminate.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this: do you believe that the conscience of the country community is more willing to integrate and have more, ethnic groups in the midst of the circle? How do you feel about that? Because it's asking you to bring your brother in and have more dialogue or debate.
Well, that's the other thing, because if people are describing Jesus as a black man, or if people are saying that Afro-Asiatic people are black, then that includes us. So whenever people talk about Israel, whenever people talk about the Hebrew Israelites, those people have to have that latitude to include us, because we were enslaved and lightened like skin-wise, lightened in terms of our thought. But at the same time, not necessarily always. We're always considered the bottom of the totem of the social pole in Europe, if not even just considered a pestilence among European people. So it's we are not white people. So if Hebrew Israelites are talking about how the other diasporic Jews are white people, that's false. And we're here to also explain how we are here to help everyone who is oppressed, and to also build communities to uplift communities. So the what's it called? We're not what somebody referred to me on Instagram as a Wazungu, I think that's what somebody referred to me as.
What do that mean?
I'm not sure what dialect or language that refers to. However, for me, we're not white people, and we've never been treated as such.
Yeah, I'm trying to really figure out if they gave you the vibe that they willing to build, as the video said. They was building with you, meaning that they gave an olive branch and you took the olive branch and y'all was building with it.
Well, like some people want to not look at race as just so simple. And that's what I'm also trying to say, is that race you can actually look at race on many different levels. There's a physical level, so whether it's hair texture, hair tone, skin tone, body and facial features, eye color, and then even voice, even the way people speak, and blah, blah. And then there's cultural, so you're including religious, political, philosophy, language, food, cuisine, socioeconomic status, and that's a cultural aspect. And then the last part is subdivisional or divisional. So when somebody is in diaspora, they are still a part of the same people, but people might perceive them as a different people. Or if they're tribally associated with that people, like the Abba Yudaya are not genetically related to the Israelites, but they've created such a culture that that intersects tribally with Israelites, that they are now Israelites. They are as if they were from the original Israelites. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
race,
So
race
now,
is race is race is not just not just a color, definitely not just skin color, but it's also more than it's everything. It's everything.
well, from the Greek ethnos, you get ethnicity. I can't. It won't come out.
No worries.
Ethnicity, right?
Yeah, ethnicity. Yeah,
Right.
we're
So
an
look,
ethnocultural group, a tribe. Tribes.
right. So now, do you think the Hebrew Israelite community that's a part of the House of Consciousness, outside of that, we're not gonna go too far outside of that. We want to deal more with the term One West camps, which is like ISUPK. You know them, right?
I've heard of them. I've heard of I've researched ISUPK, but I've One West. I've seen the website recently, but I tried contacting them when I came to New York last time. They didn't respond back.
Well, do you think they'll be more reluctant to dialogue with you and talk with you, or do you feel they'll try to call you a white boy or either a Edomite and just argue and fight with you? How do you think your interaction with them would be? The One West camps and all the offshoot or ISUPK in general who claim to be One West.
Last time I was in New York City, I met with Brother Shofar, and he was in Times Square. And at first, he was willing to talk with me and dialogue with me, saying that, yeah, I passed for white because of enslavement and dispersal and intermarriage. But then another Hebrew Israelite came up, and then he shifted his views. Because then he's like, well, now I'm going to call you. So basically, he calls me Esau, he calls me the devil or Satan, or I don't know if he called me Satan. I think he called me Esau. And they said, I said Laila Tov, and he said, good night, Esau. Like he was the last one. Like I was the last one to leave. Like he was not. He left. He went home for the night, but I was the last one standing. And I'm not. Not to. But at the same time, like I was there to build. And we had a very long and good conversation. But at the end of the day, if somebody cannot look at me because of and if they look at me and they see my skin tone and they see my skin tone and they associate me with my oppressors, that and they can't get through that, then I at the end, if they can't get through it, then that's the problem that I'm trying to talk about. Like this is a huge problem. It's not their fault necessarily, but they might not be able to get through it. So I expect that. Huh?
Let's look at the new phenomenon that took place in the community that a lot of people may not be aware of, and I done spoke about it, but you may not be aware of it. So if nothing else, let me drop the bombshell. Yeah. They have a guy within the community now, which I call the pale Arab. Pale means what to you? What do pale describe to you?
Right. I've heard of that. I've heard of him.
Yeah, you probably have seen it on my page. I know you'd have seen it. Okay. Yes. Well, Sarnetta gave him a Black Power shout out and called him a good brother and everything of that nature. So it seemed as if he in the integration spirit nowadays. And you also got the Black Hebrew Israelites that go over there and participate on this page and talk to him and things of that nature. So how would you feel if now that you're trying to reach out to them, that they turn their head at you or pull their hand back and don't want to build with you? Would you feel like they was being hypocrite, or how would you feel about that if they dismissed you when you reached out to them?
My hands are always out for acceptance or not to accept. Sorry, that was a weird statement. Please. But my hands are always out to help build and to build with people. So by acceptance, I meant that I'm willing to accept other people, and if people are willing to accept me, good. But if they're not, that's on them. For me, it's if they are hypocritical, which I am trying to expose certain aspects of inconsistency. Now, if somebody just if my people, which they were, enslaved and brought and raped and had to intermarry with Europeans, that does not make me European, because that's the exact same thing that happened to certain slaves in America. So it's really, that is hypocrisy, and I hope to illuminate that we are of the same people. That is the deal. We are of the same
I mean,
tribe.
I understand
We're of
that.
the same tribe. We're on the same tribe. That's the deal. We're both the same. We're both Jews. We're both Israelites.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
understand
message.
that, but I'm saying that's like, you know, if you accept me having conversation with me, we sitting down here talking, and then another quote unquote black guy, we'll just use that term, come and try to talk to you, and you like, well, I don't talk to black people. Like,
I never say that.
I'm just saying and putting it in the sense, okay, so what I'm talking about in the sense of one West camps in the offshoot, and their doctrine is they don't deal with Edomites, they don't deal with white people.
Yeah, that's not me.
Right, but I'm just saying, follow me.
Yeah. Sorry.
Just follow me.
Sorry about that.
Dealing with this quote unquote pale Arab, this white Arab, Edomite Arab, we'll just give whatever titles that fall on it or whatever. They dealing with him, and if you come and try to deal with them, would that not be hypocritical? You know, how would you feel about that? Saying, well, you just dealt with that white guy or that Edomite or whatever they want to call him, but you won't deal with me. Would that not be hypocrisy?
It would be. I've heard that the Edomites, the actual term Edomite, does refer to Arab people. I've heard that, you know, they're like similar to Medians or Ishmaelites, like that is they eventually make up what is Arab, or the Ammonites or Moabites, like the Assyrians, like they all create what eventually becomes Arab.
Yeah, I just don't want to get off the focus. The focus.
Well, no. The focus is that if they're accepting the people who especially oppress my people, even currently today and throughout history, then and they're trying to say, and One West is trying to say that they are my people, that is hypocritical. If they accept somebody who is literally oppressing their people, which is my people. So it's like, so if you have us on this side, you know, diasporic Jews and Hebrew Israelites, other diasporic Jews, but no. Well, and then over here you have your pale Arab Edomite, and they're accepting this guy, but they're not accepting Jews. That is hypocritical, because we are of the same ilk, but these people are not, unless these people join the tribe. If these people are joining the tribe, then we're all the same ilk. You dig?
Yeah, I like to keep it simple, because going into too many details and technicalities it's just like you say you ain't white, but to put it in a sense where it's just simple and people can get it, they accept this white guy, they're gonna deny you, quote unquote, a white guy. You know what I'm saying?
It doesn't make sense, because I pass for white, and that person may be white, but if they're Arab, then they pass for white. They pass for Arab in if they're an Israelite now, and they pass for Arab in the Middle East because they either have Arab ancestry or a name or whatever. They are white in the Middle East. You see? That's what I was saying. Arabs have historically oppressed Jews throughout history, and it doesn't mean that all Arabs are individually bad. It just means the system that oppresses.
Well, let's go into that a little bit from the historical aspect, that when Joseph was sold off, he was sold off to who?
Yeah, to the Midianites. Yeah, the Arabs. Yeah.
So they was our first enslavers, and were always, you know, historically
that was
enslavers of our people.
Yeah, that was their base. That was what they did. They were slave traders.
So now, would this be a form of exploitation?
Of what? Yeah.
Of a people. I mean, if you sell them off or if you enslave them, whatever, would that not be a form of?
Absolutely, and then you try to say that because then you go back to if you go to 1949 or 1947, 1948, 1949, and then 1967, you get people who want to destroy Israel and then make an Arab state instead of Israel, or not accept that there should be a Jewish state among. That's racist. That's oppressive to say that Jews shouldn't have their own place to preserve themselves. That's, it all connects to eventually Zionism. Zionism is this Jewish self-determination, Jewish nationalism, and it goes back to in the Torah when the Jews fled or left Egypt or Egyptian rule. They said Lishtana Haba'ah v'Yerushalayim, which means next year in Jerusalem. So they've always, and so what it means is that the Jews are one people and have always connected to that area of land. They originated as a tribe in that land. And anybody who tries to say that they're anti-Zionist means that they disagree with that statement. Now, there's different manifestations of Zionism, which some are more extreme and others are more progressive, literally progressive Zionism. I would encourage people to look up progressive Zionism and how there's two-state solutions. There's all different ways that Jews want to work with the dominant group, which is Arabs, as well as the now ethnic group, Palestinian Arabs. Sorry if that goes off on a different subject.
No, it's all good. Some information gonna go to more a crowd that come because of your name and looking for you and listening to what you saying and tap in and home into that. Some people that's from my circle, I'm trying to ask a couple things and keep it in a certain lane for them so they can comprehend and understand, perspective. So, I mean, we just having a conversation. Sometimes getting too technical, getting too technical can mess up people that don't know all the technicalities.
Right.
It'll give them a headache and they'll venture off like, oh, I don't
tune out. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to keep a fine line, that's all. So
Gotcha.
when you find me saying, oh, well, I'm going to keep it simple, it's for those that deal with the simplicity. For those that deal with complex stuff, I mean, you're doing a great job. You're blowing their head and they're going to, go study or research what you're talking about and get into the depths of it. So,
Aki.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, brother.
Yeah. Hopefully we can weave this thing in pretty good, make it conducive enough for a good show where, those that tend to resonate with you more and those that tend to resonate with me more can follow the dialogue and gain something out of it. We get some good feedback from the chat room. Now I'm going to ask a question that's in the chat. The brother asks, why do you or your type of Jew, if you're that type of Jew, which I don't know, we'll figure out here. Why do most Jewish people from that perspective, your perspective to a degree, if it's not yours,
white passing Jews.
Yeah, white passing. Those Caucasian, those that pass for Caucasian Jews, right?
Yes.
Why do they go by their mother more than their father? Hebrew Israelites or Israelite like myself would say it's the father gene, and most of them say the mother. Now, as you said earlier, that will play good in the scheme of, and correct me if I'm wrong, that my mother was raped, but I'm not of that man's. I'm a Jew through my mother. But exactly. You could explain it to me.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly why there was a change in practice of seeing, because the mother always knows whose child they have, and so the fathers the fathers might be, whether they're Romans or they're Germanic people or English people, whatever, really Polish, whatever it is, Nazis, whatever. So those people might be raping women, and the father aspect, which was the original definition of what a Jew, you pass it on through the fathers. Now, for them, they eventually changed it because you can only securely know that a mother's child is that mother's child. So then Jewish women become then the figurehead for where you get the lineage. Now, for me personally, I use both. I would say both are important. One or the other, or both. Either or both. You know, on my father's side, I have Kohen lineage and genetics, and then on my mother's side, I have Levi genetics and heritage. My mother had rabbis in her heritage, and my father had other, you know, rabbis and also, like, I guess, field workers and things like that. So there's a difference in thought and perspective on these issues. But for me, I'm not strict when it comes to that. I'm trying to establish cultural cohesion and unity, especially within the Jewish people. No worries, no worries. There's people in the store. So.
Yeah,
Does that make any
it
sense?
sounds good.
Does that
They
make
help.
sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It help with the background and stuff. You know, people be like, "Who is that girl in the back?" or "Who is that dude?" So it'll help some. You know.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, I figured I knew mostly why from what you said earlier about the rape and stuff.
Yeah.
And trying to explain it a bit. You know,
Yeah.
I do listen and tune in to some of this stuff and try to see why. But that's the clearest answer you could give.
Mm-hmm. That. Unfortunately, yeah, it's just that you don't necessarily know who your father is, but you know who your mother is because you came literally physically out of your mother. But at the same time, you don't want to lose the heritage that your mother gives you because if it's out of your father and your father is of a different group, then why should you negate that your mother's heritage?
Now, wouldn't this backfire in the sense if we go to the biblical narrative where
biblical narrative changes. People evolve philosophies. It's not everything that was literally written in the Torah is not now applicable always.
I believe that we writing the Bible right now. It just won't be published in our lifetime.
Exactly.
But we still living in biblical times.
And this is Hashem, and Hashem is within everything. I feel like Hashem or God is within everything, and Hashem means the name for those who don't know. The name, and that's because God's name would be so holy that we would not be able to really say it, or it'd be so intricate, it would be so vast and infinite that we would not be able to express what God really means in a word. So that's why we say the name. But at the same time, so God is within everything, and so God works through the people. So if people start to feel that a certain perspective or certain practice is no longer valid to their survival or their lives, then they have to change it. That's the deal. That's the way people work, and that's the way life works in the universe.
Yeah, I agree 100% that times evolve, people evolve, and political ideology evolve. But I'm just doing this in the sense that we're going to deal with the two narratives: modern day narrative, past narrative of Israelite and Israelite culture and political aspect. That the Israelite males had all these strange women, as the books say, and then they put them away. So when the women went back to their country with this man's seed, then Israelites were spread that way based up on the political and ideology and the doctrine that was pushed during that time when they separated, from each other. So as I was saying, that would conflict with that perspective, right?
Well, actually, wait. If you're saying that the father is wedding people of other nations, then at the same time, on the other end, the Jewish women can mother people of other nations as well. So then we are a stronger group because we have both fathers and mothers branching out and spreading the tribe and spreading the race, so to speak.
Or the
socio-political designation of Judaism,
right? Because
Israel.
If my sister marry your brother, now we in-laws. We
family.
Together as family. And if someone doing something to my sister, I'm gonna come to her rescue And and at the same time, if the two is one, you're gonna come to your brother rescue, and we will be more on the same side, coming together in a political aspect to deal with my sister and your brother, and saying, well, we're gonna ride on those that's going against my sister and your brother.
We're allied.
So through bloodline, most people don't realize that through those type of things, it's a political chain that get created.
That's everything is politics. Exactly.
That's where you get a Jesse Williams, white, black, or however you want to look at it, and he can speak and do things in a way which touch on both communities, and can speak to both aspects of his political birth.
Yes, let me look him up for a moment, because I know him, and I saw his speech, and it was wonderful. And he even referenced, speaking of which, people always reference Strange Fruit. Strange Fruit was written by Abel Meropool, who was Jewish, and he saw a picture of hanging black people, lynched black people, and he wrote the poem Strange Fruit in solidarity with Black Americans, with other people. And sometimes people might not remember that or might not know that. Yep, his mother is Swedish, and then his father is African American and Seminole. Okay, thank you. I just needed to look that up to see what his perspective was. So if it's coming from so even the term white is a fake. Is a term to put certain peoples, especially European peoples, above other peoples. So I don't even feel people should identify as white. I think they should identify as their specific ethnocultural groups, or the combination of those. Now, if they don't know that, then they shouldn't necessarily identify as anything. They should really they should say they're either I guess, I don't know. It's kind of confusing, because now we live in a time where there is kind of some aspect of what is white, black, Jewish, Arab, Chinese, Indian, like all these different groups, but it's like they intersect and they overlap. And so I don't know what's important for white people to do, but as long as, from my own perspective, as long as Jews aren't identifying as white, that I'm good. But in terms of white people identifying as white, I think it's oppressive. And then I think it allows other people to try to say that it's not important for them to understand their roots and look at their history and see what their people have done, or what their people, because we learn about their history, but we consider them white, and that puts them above everybody else. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, in the paradigm of the black and white color scheme,
exactly,
poverty, wealth.
Yeah,
because the interesting thing with that poem that you said, you get Billie Holiday come with this Strange Fruit, hanging from tree. Then you get even James Cone, who deal with the whole black liberation theology thing, talking about the cross and the lynching tree and the oppressed and the oppressors and Christ.
The cross, absolutely.
The cross and the lynching tree, and where the Christ or the Mashiach is related to that through, the oppression or even the death that came about through the oppressors. So, it's interesting you brought that up.
That's exactly it. They sometimes these people need to look at a dying Jew to think that they don't have to deal with their problems, that they don't have to take responsibility for the things that they've done, which is silly. They have to look at a dying Afro-Asiatic person, and they don't even label them as Afro-Asiatic. They don't even label them as Jewish sometimes.
No, it's all good. I'm kind of dealing with my chat room,
Yeah, I'm trying
I don't like really regulate it that much, but people are kind of, like I told them, it's not about debate right now. It's about getting information and allowing you. It's more like an interview, but since we know each other, it's more a conversation, right?
Of course.
And allowing you to speak on things, and people get your aspect of things, and then they can be critical of it later. Like, we can't be critical, and I'm not going to be critical, nor let anyone just try to be critical in the chat room. It's like sometimes you just need to listen. You know what I'm saying? Even the Bible, most people may not deal with the New Testament, but it say, you know, that you should listen first.
Yeah.
Right? Speak next. And the food that answer a matter before you hear it all is a food. Because you're answering on something that you know. So the whole thing is like, please just let the man speak. And then you could come in afterwards at the bottom and say, oh, he's this, that, and everything else. You know what I'm saying?
תודה רבה, brother. תודה רבה, אחי.
So, what else would you like to share? Because I'm kind of running out of questions.
Well, that's well, I guess to finish up that point on the cross, you know, the cross, when I walk down the street and I see the cross, like, that's oppressive to me. I don't know if people understand that. You know, that was the device, the torture device that was used to kill my people because they were rebels usually, and otherwise it was used to, especially in Spanish Inquisition and in Roman era, and it's the same. And I think a lot of people, that's institutionalized racism, to have to accept that that's okay as a symbol, because it literally represents somebody dying, like, because people try to say that it's a sacrifice that Jesus made. Well, if it's a sacrifice, which in some aspects it could be the oppressive, you know, the Romans that killed Jesus, and so they put him in that position. So it's kind of like, or you have him who's a righteous person. So, you know, if he existed as a righteous person, he's putting himself out there to remind people to be the best person that they can be. Now, if people are not looking at the cross and saying, oh shoot, I should be nicer to other people, oh shoot, I should be upstanding for justice, then it failed. It has failed, and I think it has failed in many cases. In other cases, some people are better people for connecting to Hashem through Jesus and through the cross, but I guess that's complicated. For me, it's a sign of oppression, but for other people, it's a sign of rebirth and understanding God in a different way. Some people see God as literal. For me, I see God as abstract as well as a physical. Everything is God. God is within everything. So it's how people understand the universe is what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, 1 second.
Yeah.
So I think you spoke on it a little bit, because I asked about One Western ISUPK. But let's go to the broader level, because it's more Black Hebrew Israelites or African Hebrew Israelites or Hebrew Israelites in general. I don't like the term. I think it's generic and man-made and stuff. But once again, we got to keep it simple. What do you think about the Black Hebrew Israelite, the African Hebrew Israelite movement? And if you could deal with them as split, or you could bring them together, however you would like to deal with, because some call themselves African Hebrew Israelites. Those are the ones in Demona in the African.
Yep.
In that diaspora. Then you got over here in America, they just seem to call themselves Black. They don't want to.
Israel, Christ, Church and God, Israel and Christ or something. There's
Israel United in Christ.
That one. Yeah, and then there was, what was that? Oh, yeah, exactly. So wait, what's your question?
No, I was just saying, go ahead. You can speak on, you know, the Black Hebrew Israelites and the African Hebrew Israelites, or once again, you can mingle the two. Just from your perspective, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When I went to college, my freshman year in college, I saw a group of, I wasn't sure if they were I think they were ISUPK, but they were in Boston, and they were on Tremont Street. And the first time I spoke with them, it was like there was this disconnect. I didn't understand what this was about necessarily. But then I looked. Well, actually, I take that back. I think I had seen them before, and that's why I looked it up. I looked General I forget his full name, but he there was this infamous video that he made a young diaspora Jewish kid cry, young Jewish man cry, because he said that the Holocaust was nothing, that Hitler was right, Jews were oppressing the Germans, and that's why, you know, basically trying to completely destroy this man's continent, like feelings, and he did. And so I was like, whoa, yeah, that's not happening to me, and that shouldn't happen to anybody else who I know. So I understood that then there was like actually there needs to be a greater conversation, a stronger conversation. So when I first went to these people, I was like, oh, what was this about? And they were kind of negative. But then they eventually, the next time that I went, it was like, oh, he understands some of what we're talking about. He that being me, like, oh, he sees this philosophical dialogue that I've had to tell some of my other Jewish friends like what they were about and what they did in this one situation with the young Jewish brother, and to say to them, well, don't let them get under your skin like that, because that's what they want. They want that opposition, that feeling of that a white person will have these guilt feelings as if they're guilt feelings, but really it's this person was oppressed for being Afro-Asiatic, and then they're now having light skin, and now they're crying on camera because they don't know how to explain themselves that they're actually the same people as these people are also claiming to be. So they're the same group of people. So Israelites to me, Hebrew Israelites to me, I want to bond, and I want us to build together, because we're one tribe. If they're Israelites, then we're Israelites, and you know that's the deal. You know,
Okay.
I see a unity there. I see a unity.
Now, before we go, you was talking about, you mentioned my name out there on 125th. How did that go?
Yeah.
Tell the people
Oh, it
about
was good. I mean, I think I asked. It was in reference to how I knew Remy Ilona, and like, or what was my background in terms of talking about the Igbo. And so I said, oh well, you know, my friend who's Remy Ilona, he's been interviewed by various people, and one of the people is you know, Israel Doctrine. Are you familiar with him? They're like, yeah, yeah. And then there's like, and then unfortunately we didn't really have much of a conversation after that. There was not much of a conversation because there was no conversation after that. But we didn't talk no longer about Israel Doctrine. I'm sorry. But I appreciate what you do, Carl, and you know, support your channel and all the dialogue you present. So, you know, keep on keeping on, my brother.
Yeah. I plan on doing that. I need to holler at David Mark. I need him back over. We got to talk. Yeah. I hit Harry up and told him, you know, it's about time for him to peek his head away from up under the rock. Stephen Graham, I'm trying to get him over, and
Yirmiyahu Danzig.
Yeah, you know, so it was funny when I was clicking because I just subscribed back to all sorts of other stuff, you know what I'm saying? And when I subscribed back, that's how I seen you. I subscribed to Black News 102, and when I did, it gave the videos up, and I was like, look at that, he made it up. So I believe I'm the one to let you know, right? You didn't even know. I'm the one to let you know you was up.
Oh yeah, you're the one who told me that it was up online. I was like, oh, thank you, thank you very much for telling me, because I was anxious when it was going to be coming out and how it was going to be cut. And also thank you again to Brother Marcus. Thank you again to Brother Sinetta, and to Brother Red Pill and Brother Shabazz and everybody else who I got to build with, and you, Brother Carl. Carl, thank you so much for everything.
All right, man. Well, we're going to call it a day on that, man. Much luck in
likewise
endeavors and stuff, man. I know you probably going to go back down there. Believe me, brother, they'll work with you. They integrate now. So you could be one of the first ones on ground zero. You know, you'll be behind by Sim. You know, you'll be behind that guy. But you could be number 2, you know,
I
and
see.
help
Oh, be
help
awesome.
in the integration of that community.
you know, unfortunately, I'm moving to California in September, so I hope to get there before. I hope to get to New York City before then. But so we're gonna see what happens. I hope to get there and have my brother, and we'll all talk. And yeah, you the being. Thank you so much for having me on, Carl. You the being.
All right, and with that, I mean, holla at your brother. He could come over and we could talk about, you know, the conversation that they said they want to have with him or things to that nature. So,
What do you mean
you know,
on this? You were in Atlanta, right?
I'm in Arkansas.
Arkansas. Okay, sorry.
Bill and Hillary country. Bill and Hillary country. You
Oh, and Bill. Yeah, yeah, Bill, Little Rock, Arkansas.
know?
Oh, do you
So
ever go to the monument, the Central High School, the monument? They have like the children, the Little Rock Nine. Do you ever see the
nah,
monument?
I don't go to Little Rock that much.
Okay,
I'm more, you know, Lorraine Hotel is the museum that's closer
wow,
to me.
wow.
That's 30 miles, Martin Luther King, Lorraine Hotel.
Ooh, very
That's
cool.
the assassination of Martin Luther King took place. So that's more like if I was going, that's why
Go to
I go.
somewhere, that's where you would go. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, you know, if my nieces and nephews and stuff, and I want to say, well, let's talk history about around here, then I wouldn't go to the capital or Arkansas. I'd go over to Memphis, you know.
Gotcha. Oh yeah,
So,
and you should also check out. People should check out Representative Steve Cohen, who represents a predominantly
yes.
black district,
Yeah.
District 9 of Tennessee, and you know they very much build together Black and Jewish solidarity. He wrote an apology for United States to the Black community based for slavery and for Jim Crow he got it passed. And so for me, there's many different things that people can use that bill for. So some people talk about reparations. I would say, if you want to talk about reparations, look at the bill and see the apology and see how it can work. And so, and you know, I think he's now a part of the Congressional Black Caucus. I think he now works with other people to help his constituents. So I also shout out to Representative Steve Cohen.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a beautiful.
Yeah, I
dude.
know
Real
about him.
beautiful.
Like I say, he's right over there across the bridge. But like I said, you know, your brother, this and that, you know, not trying to beat Sarnetta to him or nothing, but you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, if they interested and he interested to talk to him and deal with him, I would like to talk to him about his interaction with him if he choose to interact with him.
I'll let him know. I'll let him know. Thanks so much. Yeah, I will. I'll show him this. I'll show him my interview with Sarnetta. I'll show him some more Sarnetta. He lives in New York City right now, so yeah. Let's. I hope more building can be accomplished.
Okay, so man, I see you stuck in the Apple store doing this, having this discourse with me now. So, you know, we're gonna stop the people from watching you and staring at you and figuring out what you're doing there so long after you done got your computer fixed. So with that said, I'm gonna say peace, bro.
Yeah, shalom aleichem, my brother. You can do
All
it.
right.
And everybody,
Peace.
thank you for having me. You too.
All right.
You too. Peace. Shalom.